Welcome to WeatherExchange by Medius. The first thing you want to do to access your weather data would be to log in. If you don't have a login, you can simply sign up by clicking on sign up, entering your information, creating an account. You will get an email that will verify your account, activate your account, then you can return to log in. If you already have an account with Medius.Re, that account will work with WeatherExchange as well. So let's go ahead and log in. The first thing you're going to see is your pre-selected weather source. In this particular case, we're looking at WeatherLink. If your login is mapped to additional sources, you will see those in your list here as well. So you can see all the different stations that you have access to, and then some cards for each station down here on the dashboard. That'll show you the different sensors that you have available, information about the station, some information about the latest conditions as well. And so right here from this dashboard, you can go ahead and select any one of these stations, and it's going to take you to Data Center and have that station pre-populated. So at this point, I can select any of these data fields that I would be interested in, or click on the header and it'll select all of them in that sensor group. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all of those just for sake of demo. We'll go ahead and collect all of that data. By default, it will give you a couple month range here, but you can make adjustments to that, and you'll notice that there's a range limit. That range limit is based on the interval that you have selected. The interval will default to whatever the weather station's minimum interval is. But you can change that to other preset increments or change those manually here. So if you wanted to look at the data aggregated over an entire day for that period, you could go ahead and select days, and it'll convert that into minutes for you. If you have growing degree days selected, you can change that threshold as well. Let's go ahead and we'll go back to the 15 minutes that we originally requested for this date range, and you'll notice it'll give you an indication here of how many potential records you could get back based on the intervals that you have selected and the date range that you have selected. So at this point, you would hit fetch data, and that's going to go fetch all of that weather data that you just requested. As you can see up here, you have your sensor as well as then each one of the data fields and any units that are a part of that data field. So you can scroll left, you can scroll down if you want to look at additional time slots here for the data that you have. So let's say, great, you retrieve that data. Now we want to download that data as a CSV. All you have to do is click on download, and you will notice you'll get a download. It'll show up here instantly for you. So now you have all that data dumped and available to you in a CSV. Let's actually go ahead and change our interval, and let's look at a full day, and we're going to expand our date range out. So you can choose one of these pre-selected date ranges, these preset date ranges here, or if you hit these over arrows, you can move a single month at a time. If you hit the double arrows, it will jump you an entire year, or you can click on this drop down and go to a specific date directly. So just for fun, let's look at the entire year of 2021. So I'm going to select January 1st, and then we're going to jump all the way down here to December 31st. So I have the entire year of 2021 selected, and we're looking at it averaged by days. It's going to give me 365 records. We'll go ahead and fetch those records, and now I can see that all of my data is aggregated by the day, whereas before we were looking at it in 15-minute intervals. So let's say we want a graphical representation of this data for better analysis or for exporting in reports. I can go ahead and click on Graph. Now here under Graph, I will have all of the available data filters here for me, and I can select one of these and choose which axis I want to put it on. So let's start with temperature. I'm just going to search for temperature here, and let's grab our average temperature, We're going to drop that here on the left scale. And you'll notice once you drag a data field into the axis, you'll notice that it will put the unit of measure up here. That now locks in this axis to where you can only drag other data fields that would fall under the same unit. That way their scale is corresponding and correct. So then let's say I want to look at temperature as compared to precipitation. I can now drag precipitation down to the right axis and lock in inches. And I'm going to go ahead and select bar for precipitation. So I've got line by default for my average temperature and bar for precipitation. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on redraw graph. And now I have a graph here of a year's worth of data looking at the average temperature as well as looking at precipitation. And as you can see, as I scroll across here with my mouse, that not only are the lines being drawn on the point that I'm looking at, but I also am seeing up in the legend at the top the current value that I'm hovering over. So it gives you a great way to be able to scan through your data. You can also scroll in or back, and that will zoom for you if you want to zoom in on your data more. And then you can also grab down here at the bottom this scrub brush, and you can pan your way through the data if you are zoomed in, or you can always zoom back out as you look at the data. So you would have the ability to come in here and stack as many data fields into each axis as you would want. That gives you flexibility. So then let's say you want to be able to export this. You can, again, there's the download button here. Click on download and it will generate a PNG file for you, and you can use that in any report that you may have. The last tab that's available here in Data Center is a tab that gives you detailed information about the particular weather station that you have selected. So again, you see your sensor information, some of the details of location, and then the location of that sensor on a map. Let's say I wanted to quickly jump to another station. I could pick any station within my presets over here in the sidebar, or if you come up to select weather station, you can search for a station that you might be interested in. So I could go now look at EV Smith, and you'll notice that it built now a new list of data fields for me, and I can come in here and select those as the sensors are different for each station. And then I can come in, and again, I could say, let's look at 12 hours this time, and go ahead and fetch that data, and it will go pull that data in for you, sorted from the latest to the most recent. So that is a summary overview of the initial release of WeatherExchange by Medius. Let's go ahead and look at how we can use weather data within Medius.Re to help us analyze the data that we have collected from our variety trials. So I'm going to go to snack chip trials here, but you can go to any one of these trial groups in the trials page. And you'll see here in the list of trials that we have these weather icons. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this weather icon to pull up the weather data for this storage trial in Michigan. The first thing that you'll notice is that it defaults our date range to be from the date of planting to the date of harvest. Now, if you're interested in expanding that date range out, you can go ahead and click anywhere in these calendars and then hit apply. But we're going to look at the planting date all the way to the harvest date. The other thing you'll notice is that if there's any other dates that are available within the trial data, those will be indicated here as well. So we have vine kill, and there was an additional sample date that occurred here. Let's say we want to compare now our max air temperature to precipitation. Over here on the side where I have my additional y-axis, I can go ahead and add precipitation, and that will automatically default to a bar chart. So now what I see over here on my left axis is our temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, and over here on the right y-axis I see my precipitation in inches. So I can now see where I may have had a large amount of rain, on a day that had a higher temperature. Could give me some indication as to why the data looks the way it does when analyzing different things for these potato varieties. Now let's say I'm curious about how this weather performed this year compared to previous years or over multiple year average. So I'm going to go here to average years, and I'm going to increase this to 5 and then click on the little reload icon there. What I'm looking at now is I have this grayed out shading here that shows me what the 5-year average was over the same time period, as now looking at the current time period in the darker line as well as the bars down here for precipitation. You'll notice down here in the lower left, for each one of the data fields available for weather, we give you the min, the max, the average, and then the total sum for the date range that you have selected. Obviously, not all data fields will be valid to know the sum or the average, but we provide all of that aggregate data for you. Looking at growing degree days, the threshold, the default for Potatoes USA has been set to 40, but let's say that you want that to be a different value. You can go ahead and just change that to be 50 and then reload your weather data. And now we will reset the chart with the growing degree days to be 50 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and change that back to 40 and reload our chart data. Now, let's say you wanted to look at this weather data in more detail. You can go ahead and click on weather data, and now what you're going to see is the day-by-day breakdown of each value, as well as the 5-year average value compared next to it. And you'll notice that if there are any dates available for specifics that happened during this trial, they'll be indicated here. So date planting, and as we scroll down, we'll come across the sample date here, as well as the date vine kill, and lastly our date harvested. Now you'll notice here, specific to growing degree days, since we've reset that to 40 degrees, that this is calculating our sum here on the side based on that 40 degree threshold. Lastly, if you're interested in understanding more about the weather station and where the data came from, the last tab, Weather Station, will show you the lat long, as well as the elevation of the weather station and the source where that weather data came from, and give you a satellite view of where that weather station is located. So that's a quick highlight of what you can do with the weather data. If I go ahead and go back and add precipitation back in here so I have my full chart, you can also come up here to this export as image, and if I just click on that, I get a nice PNG exported of this chart for me, so I can include that in any reports that I may use. So that's a quick look at how you can utilize weather data within Medius.Re.